Welcome back. Our next speaker is Parul Agarwal. Parul Agarwal is an independent digital journalist from Bangalore with more than 15 years of experience in the content industry. She started her career as a print journalist with the Hindustan Times and moved on to become a television journalist at Network 18. She produced India's first citizen report based on TV program popular known as CJ Show as a TV journalist. She has two award-winning stories for her credit exposing corruption in the central and state government schemes. Her endeavors in the digital space started with BBC in 2010, working at the London office and in Delhi as a web editor, newsroom journalist, radio broadcaster, and TV producer. With diverse experience in print, TV, radio, and digital, she produced BBC's India's first multimedia series on 100 years of Delhi as a capital of India, a 5-month long project, launching BBC Hindu's social media presence in India in 2030. She also won a Lally Media Award for the year 2015 in the Best Web Feature category for her story on the rape victim. In the last 5 years of her career as a freelancer, she has worked with startups, non-profits, and government ministers to content categories needs and help them in ensuring better visibility online. I now request ma'am to start the session on web content development. Over to you, Parul ma'am.
Yeah, thank you, Shilpa. Thanks a lot for introducing me. And thanks everybody who's now going to be a bridge between me and the participants. It's really sort of sad and unfortunate that we have to do this online because such sessions usually are very interesting when you do them face to face, because this is primarily about hands-on techniques and how you can write good content and stuff. So, but yeah, nevertheless, we will try to do our best. And I hope all the participants are able to, take away the maximum from this workshop. Now, before we start, before I start talking and I presenting whatever I have to say today, I just quickly wanted to know from our set of participants, and I see there are 43 participants with us right now. I just quickly wanted to know from them if they can just type in the Q&A chat module, what is it that they want to take away from this workshop? Why do they think, why are they here, and what they basically want to gain from this? So the one that will give me an idea of the kind of participant base we have, and two, that will also help me tweak whatever information and insights I have to your needs, so that I can understand what you want to learn from here. So yeah, if you can just start typing, I mean, you just one word. So do you want your personal brand building? Are you looking for writing more blogs and articles maybe for media? Do you want to manage your websites better? And such things. I have not received any answers yet. Can the participants hear me?
Yes, madam. Yes.
Yes. So yeah, I just wanted to, whoever is there, I mean, it's a very simple question. I just basically want to know, what do you aim to learn from being in this workshop? And what is your ultimate target? When you hear about the word content, what comes to your mind? How do you think it is important for you?
See, there are a lot of things that one like to put in the web page, but the content has to be crisp and clear, and it should catch the population, the target audience at the first look only. So how to make that? That is a question. There's a lot of things, and we keep beating around the bush, but the content is not correct. So that is one. Two, blogs. How to make a good blog. Okay, these are the two things at least I am looking at.
Sure. Okay, perfect. So So of course we will be talking about that, and I'll be sharing what I have learned from being in the industry for almost 15 years now, and the common mistakes that we do usually, and how we can sort of cease doing these mistakes so that things are better. And blogs, like you've mentioned, is just one form. There are many other forms. So I will also try to introduce you to other options available and other platforms available, and what is primarily more interesting for the readers these days. Can you venture out in these domains, and how you can do it? So I'm starting to share my screen now. I hope everybody can see it. So I chose this as my first slide because I feel that this is a very interesting quote by, I could not find who said this, but this is something that resonates with everybody and most of us who work in the content industry. And this simply reads that, few people set out to create content that is boring, confusing, irrelevant, and irritating. Still, the web is full of fluffy, bad, purposeless, and useless content. Now, I'm sure many people will agree with this, that, unless you are looking to create nuisance online and you genuinely are looking to create something which is, just sort of irritating for people to read, something which is boring, most people want to write stuff which is interesting, which is read by many people, and which basically communicates their message in the most fascinating way possible. But still, when we scroll internet and when we scroll Facebook or Medium or other platforms on internet, there's a lot of content which is completely opposite to this target. So why does that happen? When our intention is clear and when we genuinely want to do our best, what is it that lacks behind, or what is it that basically is not achieved properly, which ends up in a lot of people creating content which is sometimes very lengthy, boring, and which does not communicate their intentions properly. So that is what we will try to learn in this workshop today. And I will start this whole session with a very interesting, and this is really close to my heart. This is basically part of communication theory. So people who are in depth, who are academicians and who really want to go deep into communication and understand its theory, usually talk about Marshall McLuhan. But I today feel that his name should be known by almost everyone. And Marshall McLuhan coined this theory of the medium is the message, which I feel that today is the center of communication in every way. So that's the reason I'm introducing you to Marshall McLuhan. And what he basically mentioned was that before Marshall McLuhan coined his theory of medium is the message, it was largely always understood that whatever content you write, so for example, if I frame a sentence and say that the Anand Sagar University is the best university in the world, that is exactly what I mean. But Marshall McLuhan coined a theory of the medium is the message, where he mentioned that the medium that you choose to communicate this message. So for example, if this idea that I have in mind, that the Anand Sagar University is one of the best universities in the world, is converted as a television commercial and put on TV, it has a different impact and meaning altogether. If we try to tweet this information out, it adds a different level of meaningful layer to it. It can mean different in different circumstances. The connotation can be different. If we plan to make a radio project out of it, that will have a separate set of impact. So before Marshall McLuhan, this whole idea of how a medium can impact a message was non-existent. It never existed. He was the first one to acknowledge the fact that any particular medium that you choose to communicate your message has a very, very crucial and important role to play in adding on to that, in adding on to the medium of that, in adding on to the message, meaning of that message, and also how that message basically impacts your audience. So, always keep in mind that whatever content you create, whatever message you want to percolate is important. But at the same time, a very, very careful selection has to be made of what medium you choose for it. So for example, if you are an academician or a teacher and you are a subject matter expert and you want to reach out to your audience, you really need to do a careful thinking of the fact that, do you want a LinkedIn post out of it? Or would you want to start a blog, your own website? Would you want to tie up with other websites who are probably, also writing on the kind of subjects and messages that you want to communicate? Or do you want it to be, say, a podcast? So the medium that you choose will inherently decide a lot of things that you say, and will also play a huge role in the impact of that content. So with that in background, I basically wanted to sort of give you an example of how this percolates, this whole idea of medium is the message percolates in our day-to-day life. Now, I hope you're aware of these three faces and you know who they are. So the first one is basically Subramaniam Swamy. He is he's a member of BJP and a member of parliament from Rajya Sabha, and he's a politician. And Subramaniam Swamy always uses Twitter for whatever he has to communicate. So he loves controversies, and many of his statements have actually been very, very controversial. So the way it usually functions is Subramaniam Swamy will come up with something, he will tweet, then that tweet will be retweeted 100 times, and then media will pick it up, and then there'll be debates on it, and then the whole television news coverage will follow. So that is his choice, and he does it very deliberately. He's not very good with I'm not saying that he does not participate in television debates or he doesn't write articles. He does, but he has primarily chosen Twitter because he feels that Twitter is basically a very, very right medium for making things viral. And only when you don't want to give much context to what you're saying, you don't need to say much, you just have 140 words to basically put the fire on, and that's it. And then you just wait and watch. You step back and you see what is happening. Now, the second example is of Rahul Gandhi. And Rahul Gandhi entered Twitter in 2015, which is very, very late if you see how the rest of the politicians entered on social media. So he was pretty late, and I think one of the reasons always is that he's trolled quite heavily on social media platforms. So the party probably think that if he enters Twitter, it'll primarily be his trolling all the time, and he will not be able to communicate much messages. But that is something which is so true to their thinking that even today, if you follow Rahul Gandhi on Twitter, you would not find him tweeting a lot on what he thinks and his larger sort of vision about things. He primarily uses television as a medium. He will give more bites. Whatever important he has to say, he will always do a press conference first, and then it will come out to Twitter. So other than many of the other politicians who first tweet it and then there is a press conference that follows. So that is what Rahul Gandhi has chosen, and he basically tries to, the other thing that is important in Congress's case is that they always feel that reaching out to mass audiences through television is always better, because it has a reach in the rural areas, and they feel that they would want to speak to that sort of electorate. Now, the third case is of Renuka Shane. Renuka Shane has written a lot on the casting couch in cinema industry. She's a TV actress, she's a film actress, and quite popular in at least the Hindi speaking regions. And she primarily always speaks to her fans or communicates with them through Facebook. So she does have a Twitter account, but at the same time, it is primarily for just connecting with people and just responding to them. Whatever she has to say, she says it always through Facebook, because she personally feels that everything needs a context. Unless you are able to put a background to things, and unless you are able to explain things in detail with all the nuances and with all the background information and examples, you will not be able to communicate effectively. So her idea of communication with her fans is not just giving out a statement and staying away. She really wants to engage with people, and she really wants to communicate herself well. So her Facebook posts are usually very long. She will sort of write a 2-3 paragraph sort of post, and then she'll post it on Facebook. So that is how people around us, people who are businessmen, people who are academicians, and people who are politicians and who are into thinking industries, they choose and opt for where they want to be and what they want to communicate. Now, as we get into understanding the content better, and why it is important for all of us to give so much weightage to what we say and how we say it, I really like this quote which says that content is fire and digital is gasoline. Now, and we are particularly talking about web content here. So I feel that all of us also need to sort of step back a little and understand that we always had so when it I mean the evolution of content, if you look at the evolution of content, it started from print, and then television came into picture, and then we also had radio. So all of these mediums existed in isolation, but once digital came into picture, it did start with print and typed words and people writing blogs. But now, if you see the face of digital, it is primarily about multimedia content, and digital has literally amalgamated the whole content industry. So today, if you were to create content about your subject or whatever you want to say, it is not necessary that you only have to write and type and you then communicate your message. There are various ways in which you can do it. So typed word and written word is just one form. You can always create a video out of it. You sit in front of the camera, you say what you want to say, you put it out in the internet domain, and that's it, and that is your content. So you don't need to essentially type it and basically write it in the form of an article. You can always do a podcast. So podcast is also, audio is a very, very picking up sort of medium now, and lots of people, especially subject matter experts, are now launching their own podcasts, because people sometimes they just want information to be in background. They do not have time to sit and read stuff, so they just switch on a podcast. You are probably driving or you're doing something, you have your earphones on, you're listening to the podcast, and you get all the information. So podcast is one way. And then there are multimedia platforms available. There are multimedia storytelling formats that are coming up, where one story is basically a mixture of text and video and audio and infographics and caricatures. So almost all the forms that you can think of are included in that story. So so that is why understanding in what ways digital has changed our communication is very, very important to basically be able to write better about it. So these days, when you write a blog, it is not just about writing hard-hitting 5 paragraphs, which is solid with text, and that's it. No, probably it will be too heavy for most of the audience. We will also talk about the audience types, because, for example, if an academician is reading your blog, probably they would love the intense information that you've given in the blog, but because you've put it on internet, probably one of your students will also read it, or a journalist will also read it, and a journalist would maybe then want to connect with you because they feel that you've written some interesting information. So will that journalist or the student be able to understand if it is too intense and too dense? Probably not. So we'll talk about this in detail later, but understanding that digital has basically it has just erased these boundaries of the content only being video, or only being text, or only being audio. It has just mixed everything up, which basically gives you, one, lots and lots of more opportunities to say your stuff in a better way, and two, you can also make a lot of connections now because of digital. So let's look at a few content pillars. We call them content pillars when we talk about web content. What are a few content pillars that you can ride on, that you can use to basically communicate your message to the world? And so there are many, and I'm sure I have tried to list out as many as I could, but I'm sure there will be a few more. And there are new formats that are coming up every day. So articles, all of us know what articles are. These are news articles, or any sort of article that you see on a news website, or maybe in a journal, or it could be an educational website. I'm sure there are articles on DSU website also, which basically highlight about how to apply for courses or how to do what. So there are articles. There are Facebook posts. All of us write these Facebook posts, and for us, probably these are not very important. We just write them to casually update people about what we want to do. But a lot of companies are now on Facebook, and they communicate their messages daily with their audiences and with their readers through these Facebook posts. So there are a lot of awareness campaigns that are run through Facebook posts. Daily you would see a few posts, and then the whole campaign will primarily be around social media. So Facebook posts are a very, very important sort of content pillar. A lot of times what people also do is, so for example, if you write a blog or an article, and you have published it on your website, on your institution's website, you break it down into multiple pieces, and then you tease every day with small chunks on Facebook. So it may sound like a small Facebook post, but at the same time, you are basically linking it to the wider piece that you've written. So that's one way of utilizing Facebook post as a content pillar. And that is how Facebook becomes a very, very important element of how we want to write web content or how we want to communicate these days. Reports, this is basically the right participant pool to understand what reports are. So I'm sure a lot of you must be writing them yourself. You must be consistently reading them a lot for your study and research. So reports are primarily, factual, data-based, intense research studies that are primarily written to communicate about any one topic to a larger audience. Reports generally tend to be a bit longer than articles. I mean, they are usually a bit longer. They have to be minimum 4 to 5 pages if you want to call it a report. So reports is one such way. And then there are normal stories. We hear little stories all the time. So stories, so if you ask me, actually a story is basically a part of all the content pillars that we're talking about. Everything that you write is a story, but a story in itself also as a capsule is a content pillar. So you can independently write a story while you want to communicate anything about your product or your own brand or what you do to the world. Reviews are reviews where you try to critique any product or any idea, and you try to present your views or your experience of how you liked it or you didn't like it. Testimonials are primarily, again, so the difference between reviews and testimonials is that testimonials are primarily written for people, for their expertise. So for example, if I like somebody's content marketing skills a lot, I will write a testimonial for them saying that I took their services and I really liked them, and these are the reasons I like them a lot. So it is a testimonial from my side. It's like I have experienced it firsthand, and I declare to the world that I can vouch for their skills. So that is what testimonials is. Now, please do keep this word testimonial in your head, because when we talk about personal branding and how you can enhance your brand online through LinkedIn and other mediums, we will talk about this again. This is a very important aspect, and all of you should try to get more and more testimonials about your work. So keep this in mind, and we'll talk about it later. Now, animated videos. Animated videos are short videos that are primarily not produced through camera. There is no camera work involved. You have not filmed the actual real life sequences. But what you've done is you have used softwares, and you've used illustrations, and you've used the art of drawing and pencil art and all these things, and you have created videos out of that. Now, animated videos are primarily a very handy tool, especially considering a situation like a pandemic, because now if you ask me, a lot of organizations are not allowing their teams to go out. People are largely working from home. So if you have to create a video today, how would you do it? You don't want to go out and you don't want to expose yourself. So one of the really good ways is, and I will show you a sort of animated video a bit later in the presentation. So one of the really interesting ways to do this is by using animation. So you just use a few softwares, you illustrate about your idea, your product, or what you want to do, and you create an animated video. It does not require you to be in your office or on a real life location. GIFs, I think most of you will know. We use a lot of GIFs these days on WhatsApp to communicate our emotions. So GIFs are primarily slightly different from emojis. What you see at the center of this the slide is basically a GIF. So this content cross-channel creation, curation. So this is a GIF. So it's basically to grab the attention of the audience, to quickly hook them to something which is moving, which is not dry, which is not static on the screen, but basically, also communicates your message. So these are GIFs. And you also need to keep in mind that as we talk about these content pillars, there is a sense of formality and informality attached to all of them. So as all of you would agree, a news article is a much more formal way of communicating with the audiences than, say, a blog. Because your blog is very personal, you can write your own opinion into it, and you can write what you feel about a subject, and you can started with a very personal story. But the moment you are writing a news piece, you have to be very balanced and factual. You have to give the other side of the story also. Only your story will not matter, because now this is going out to a national or regional audience, and it is being carried in a newspaper. So likewise, GIFs are basically considered to be very, very informal. You don't use GIFs in very formal sort of blogs, and you will never find GIFs being used in academic journals and stuff. So you can always use it. There is nothing like this is never I mean, it's not that you cannot use it at all. You can. There would be probably instances and circumstances where you can use a GIF in your academic journal, but mostly GIFs are considered to be an informal mode of it's an informal content pillar. You don't use GIFs in formal pieces of content usually. So blogs, we already know what blogs are. Cartoons, we have all seen cartoons in the newspapers, and these days cartoons are also published on the digital websites, on different sort of digital platforms. So cartoons are a very funny and quick and witty way to say what you want to say, but probably you cannot say directly. So a lot of political humor, a lot of very intense stuff, which needs to hit hard, is usually said through cartoons. And the other form of cartoons is caricature, which is also now being used by a lot of companies and startups. And in fact, caricatures are now being used, or those comic strips are now being used as a social communication tool also. So a lot of these nonprofits, who work in rural areas and who work with communities that are probably not very well literate, they use cartoons as a tool. They use comic strips as a tool for awareness, because they're interesting, they are catchy, they are children like them a lot, and they are very impactful in communicating the message. So cartoons are a really good way, and they are probably usually, a lot of people usually don't think cartoon as a very serious mode that they can use, a very serious content pillar that they can use. But believe me, cartoons, not just the funny cartoons and not just the witty ones, cartoons, caricatures, illustrations, graphics are a very, very interesting and powerful way of communicating with people. So they communicate your message in a very interesting way. So do consider when you're writing an article, or when do consider if you can include some illustrations into it, or if any of your idea can actually be formed like an illustration and probably include it. Now, online campaigns are similar to any campaign or awareness campaign that we have always seen. A campaign is primarily when you consistently try to produce and distribute content on one topic to reach out to the target audience. And any campaign primarily targets at behavior change. So while other forms, so for example, an article or a blog or a review or a report does not essentially want the behavior of the reader to be changed, when you talk about online campaigns or digital campaigns, we are primarily looking at producing content or writing content that leads to behavior change. So if your content, whatever you are writing is not leading to behavior change, for example, you will see a lot of digital campaigns now being run for COVID vaccine. A lot of people have this inhibition of, will vaccines work for us? Will they not? Should we take it? Should we wait for some time? There are these questions in people's mind. So a lot of digital campaigns will now be run to answer these questions. Government has already started it, but we will see more such campaigns in coming days. And these campaigns primarily try to change the behavior of the reader or the audience. They want you to do a certain task. They are oriented towards making people act in a certain way. So the language of these campaigns, the way they are done, the way they are distributed, and again, going back to that medium is the message connotation, the medium that you choose for them is very, very carefully selected because you're looking at behavior change. And you can actually do that. It's a very independent sort of field of study where people work on campaigns and behavior change communication. So online campaigns is that. Video, very simple. We all know what we are doing right now is a form of video. I mean, there are videos that are properly done, filmed, shot, edited, and then put out. There are visual mediums, video mediums like this. We just do a webinar, we record it, we broadcast it on YouTube, and it's done. Okay, we have already explained animation. I repeated it here. Now, audio, I've already mentioned podcasts are a very good example of audio. There are also radio channels that run proper audio shows. So podcast is just one way. Podcast is a very simple way of audio where you just create content and you put it out, but there's not much layering to it. There's no music and there's no, but when you do proper radio features and when you do proper radio programs, it can literally transform you to that place. So I remember with the BBC, when I was with the BBC, I did this 100-year, when Delhi completed 100 years of as capital of India, we did a 5-month-long series where the idea was to basically, tell users everything about Delhi and how Delhi came out to be this beautiful and really important city. And we did a podcast, we did a radio program, rather a radio feature on the culinary delight of Delhi, how Delhi's food has transformed through history. And when you read that, when you listen to that radio show, that radio program, you can literally transform yourself to all those little places in Delhi, the Chandni Chowk, and those street vendors and that street food of Delhi with that sound of tuk tuk and that sound of cutlery and everything. So that is how you basically enhance your content when you're working for radio. And audio is also, again, a very, very powerful medium. In times and in situations where you cannot do a video, if you're not very comfortable on camera, always go for a audio podcast or create an audio feature, and that will work really well. Picture stories. Picture stories are, interestingly, stories that largely carry pictures, and through pictures, they try to communicate whatever they have to communicate. So for example, there'll be very less text, probably one caption or two caption, but there will be pictures back to back. And these will be pictures which are combined and hooked to a theme. So for example, you can have a very interesting picture story around Diwali, how people across India are celebrating Diwali. Or for example, farmer protests. Farmer protests, again, can be a very strong and compelling picture story. So when you try to showcase how farmers in Delhi are protesting, and then you try to showcase how farmers from Maharashtra have joined in, then there is probably one farmer somewhere in Jharkhand or Chhattisgarh who's trying to do something, you put that picture in. So, this, because these pictures are so compelling and so powerful that you don't need to say much. So your storytelling primarily is happening through pictures, and you just compile them around one single theme. These cannot be random assorted pictures. They have to be around a theme to communicate a single message. And that is how you create a picture story with minimum text, but more pictures, utilizing the visual strength of web. Multimedia, as I've explained before, is basically amalgamation of everything. So when you use different forms of content and different formats into one, that is basically what is multimedia. Quiz. Now, I mean, I wish we were, we could sort of see each other, and this was probably more like a class where I genuinely wanted to know from you how many of you have ever explored quiz as an option of communicating with your students or saying what you want to say. Now, quiz, I personally feel, is a very, very less explored medium of uh, communication. Not many people think that they can say what they want to say through a quiz. And I'll give a very interesting example to you now. Scroll, which is a news publication, they basically did an article around when there were huge protests in India around CAA. So they did a whole they did a digital multimedia piece using quiz as the only format of storytelling, and they communicated a story beautifully through that quiz. And the whole idea was that they will, because the background of CAA was NRC, how the identity of the citizens will be registered, and some few citizens will end up disqualifying, which started from Assam, which was again a very controversial thing. So what Scroll did was they actually created a quiz on NRC, and they invited all the readers and participants, anybody who's reading that story, to take that quiz. So they will ask you, so the basic thing that headline asked was, just test and see, just take up this quiz and see if you can pass this test of NRC, if you qualify to be a citizen of India. And you will be surprised to know that, and probably that was the reason a lot of people were protesting, that many of the laws and many of the rules mentioned in NRC basically disqualify many of us who probably have wrong paperwork, or there's this mismatch in the spelling name and all of these things. So many of us tended to disqualify. So anybody who takes that quiz through that story will end up realizing that that's the reason people are protesting so much, because it disqualifies you as a legitimate citizen of India. And it was a beautiful story, clicked some, I think that story also won 1 or 2 awards, but a very simple idea, very well executed, and a very impactful way. You can probably write 10 paragraphs on NRC and just put it out in the internet domain, but how many people will read it? So, it was a very interesting way to hook people on that topic and literally take them through that journey through a quiz. Newsletters. Now, I'm sure a lot of you already know what newsletters is, and all of us receive newsletters in our emails most of the times. So newsletters are primarily emails, heavy with text and few pictures, which are usually sent to our emails primarily to communicate mix of information on something. So for example, Dayanand Sagar University can have its own newsletter, which is literally like, a weekly thing or a fortnightly thing, or probably once a month, which is sent to all the faculty members or everybody who's associated with Dayanand Sagar University, telling people about the achievements of the university, what the faculty has done, probably published a paper or written an article. It could be about the glorious alumni and how people have been placed in interesting positions. It could be about the interesting tie-ups the university has had with different universities. So all this is basically compiled in the form of a newsletter, drafted as an email. It has links to the original stories or the original sources. So for example, if Oxford University has had a tie-up with Dayanand Sagar University, and so you can literally link it to that original source so that people can go and read how it happened and what is the topic and everything. And the newsletter is primarily a way to build your brand through these different sets of little information and basically delivering it in a nutshell. So a lot of people who probably cannot come to the website frequently, or they cannot keep a tab of a lot happening on in the university and on different domains, newsletter is a very interesting way for them to have this concise information. And newsletters is again a very, very popular upcoming medium now. You will not believe a lot of academicians and subject matter experts actually issue their own newsletters. So it's a way for them to concise everything that they have done probably in a month. If you are a very active, you're active in social circles, you've given a lot of TV interviews, you're writing extensively, you're also teaching people and everything. So you create a new newsletter about your achievements in nutshell, and your students and people who who subscribe to you, or people who would love to, your Twitter followers or your Facebook friends and followers, you can send that newsletter to them. So that's a very concise and crisp way of communicating about yourself, and reaching out to a very specific target audience. It's not meant for everyone. It is basically meant for people who are interested to know what you want to do. So newsletters and emails is primarily that, and surveys. Now, survey is basically a slightly passive content pillar. Surveys per se do not communicate any information, but it's a very, very intense research tool, and it's a very intense news gathering tool. It gathers the information in a very, very interesting way. And the reason I've included survey here is because a lot of journalistic stories and interesting stories you would have seen emerge from surveys. So, for example, if you've done a survey in in the students, among the students in Bangalore, and you've realized that you want to understand the patterns of the impact of pandemic on the students, you do a survey amongst the students of Delhi of Dayanand Sagar University. You can literally gauge those patterns, and then there will be little stories that will emerge out of it. There can be articles written on the survey results and what you've come across in these surveys. So these are primarily a few content pillars that we generally use to communicate our message. And then we will try to understand some of them in detail in later. So all of these content pillars that we have spoken about right now can primarily be categorized into two categories. People who have phones, I would request you to enlarge and see, because probably the screen will be too small for you. So, so all these previous content pillars that we spoke about can be categorized into two broad categories. One is content for information. The other is content for promotion. So content for information is primarily content that is written to inform people. You're not trying to sell anything. Your idea is not to coax your reader to spend money. That is not your intention. You're primarily writing to inform them, and you do that by writing articles or blogs that are interesting and crisp, and you place them in places where they can reach the mass audience or your target audience. So that's primarily the intention of this sort of content, which is informative in nature. The second category is of content, which is content for promotion, which is probably something that we don't know much about. Not many people devote a lot of attention to the kind of content which is essentially required for promotion. But this is basically the vertical which is very new to the digital ecosystem. And when I say new, I'm talking about last 4-5 years. This is the domain which is heavily technology oriented. As the technology is changing, there are new things coming up, and the way to sort of push content and the way to promote content is also changing. And this is primarily a more intense category of the whole web content development ecosystem that we're talking about, because this involves analytics, this involves a lot of technical tools that are coming up, it involves a bit of strategic thinking of how you want to do it and what is the right way to do it. So content for promotion is primarily that category. Now, what I have here are basically a few examples again. So this one basically is a post by Milap, which is a crowdfunding platform. And what they do is they basically put out information or articles or content in the public domain to request people to donate for a few causes. The idea of crowdfunding is that you donate in small amounts so that it becomes a big amount. So rather than one person donating 1 lakh rupees, they want the stories of people who need this money to reach to massive number of audiences. And then small amounts will basically make a bigger amount. So as you would understand, content is a very, very important aspect of crowdfunding. Unless you tell these stories in a very impactful way, in a way which connects with the audience, and in a way, where they are targeted towards the right people who tend to donate, this will not work. So that is why, I thought of bringing this as an example. So content for promotion is one. Now this, if you see, is primarily a product listing. A lot of people feel that when we talk about content, it is only about articles and blogs. No, any word that you read on internet is one or the other form of content, and there are people who are sitting somewhere writing that content. So there are people who are specialized into writing product listings. There are people who are specialized into writing copies for crowdfunding campaigns, these small story copies that you see. So for example, a story about this man who has been gathering garbage and who's basically trying to make the river garbage free. So there's someone who has expertise and skill to write this sort of content, and he's the right person to do that. So what we have in the second what we have as a second example is primarily a product listing, where the idea is to give the reader a very basic and quick understanding of what the product is, tell about the price because they are keen to know and they would want to click. Sometimes you don't give the price primarily to sort of keep them curious and to force them to click. Most of the times you give them the price because that is how it will rank. If there is no price, Google probably will not rank it there. And then, it has the name of the company. And so, for example, very interestingly, if you see in the first example, I probably typed in my Google search UV sterilizer. There's this whole concept of ultraviolet ray sterilization after the pandemic has hit us, to basically primarily sterilize the objects in our day-to-day life. So how can I sterilize my phone? How can I sterilize the keys? How can I sterilize day-to-day objects, a pen, maybe a mouse? So I typed that, and the results that came up is basically another form of promotional content, and how this is written is also very equally important. So in the first category, if you see, only the first category also mentions free delivery. Now that's a very interesting way to tell the audience and basically hook the audience that, if you buy from us, this is free delivery. So some people may omit this information, but that's a very clever way to include a piece of information which will connect with your audiences and which will basically tell them that, hey, if you order from us, this is free. So, you don't need to worry about the delivery charges. So that is exactly how you decide what to say and what not to say. Even a very small product listing has to be designed very carefully and thinking what you want to say and how it will basically end up in a conversion lead, basically how it will coax the reader or the audience to genuinely go and buy the product. So that's one. The third example is basically a slightly longish sort of product description and you see such things on Amazon primarily. Most of us order from Amazon and e-commerce website these days. So we see a product, then we see a longish description, and then we see everything about the product which can influence our buying decision. So that's one sort of product listing. So the first example is what you see in a quick Google search. Somebody has written this content. The second that you see is primarily a detailed version of the product description. So here your intention would be to inform about each and everything. You would not want the consumer to have slightest of inhibition in his or her mind about, what is the size, or will it be effective, or is it breakable, or how durable it is. So most of the times, most of the companies try to answer as many questions as possible in that very, very short space and time, because they want their consumers. The salesperson is not available here. You're doing that dealing or you're doing that buying activity online. So I click on that link and the only information I have about that product is what is available there. So for me to be able to buy it, I should be able to understand the product and I should have a very informed decision. So that is why it is very important how you frame this message and how you try to give all the information that is possible in that little box. Now, this example that you see here is very interesting. This is primarily from Indian Express. And what they've done is, Indian Express, we all know, is a newspaper. They do, articles and they are primarily into distributing news. So what they have done is to bring more people to their own website, they have created these notifications. And I'm not too sure if universities use this mechanism, but a lot of times when you go to university websites, also you will see these pop-ups coming up, which will say that, do you want to apply to this course, or do you want to do this? So these are the things that primarily, they entice the reader or anybody who has landed on your website to engage with the website. They will probably answer a question. So somebody who has come to the DSU website probably is looking for a course. So if there is a pop-up that tells you that chat with our customer care executive, or I mean, not the customer care executive, but probably chat with someone from the administrative department and know what you're looking for. It becomes an interesting way to engage with the audience, and it also is a very interesting way to give them the information. So these pop-ups are primarily, the first one is to ask people to subscribe to Indian Express so that they can regularly receive it. The second is to basically showcase one of their audio components. So Indian Express has done an audio podcast or a audio story on something, and they are basically highlighting it, saying that, hey, we have this available, why don't you read it? So whatever is being written in these pop-ups is also equally important. How you frame this and how crisp and concise and direct it is really important. So it's interesting to know how this works so that you are able to frame this content better. And the last example that we have is basically a very usual ad that we see all the time. So when we log into websites, we see these little pop-ups, coming up everywhere. These little pop-ups are these ads that we see. So for example, if you searched for a shoe or a table or a chair, these ads will then keep following you. So this is one of the examples. How these ads function, we will see a bit later, but primarily this is the example of how it functions, how it is placed on a website. So this is primarily content for promotion, and how you write this content, we will talk about it a bit later. So so both these two categories, content for information and content for promotion, primarily makes up the web content ecosystem. And this ecosystem will decide how you write, what you write, and where you write for, and basically where your content is going. So these three things are all are basically incorporated in this ecosystem that we call the web content ecosystem. Now, when we talk about content, of course, it is informative, promotional, and marketing oriented. And the third form is user-generated content. Now, user-generated content is something that a lot of people don't realize can be very important. But user-generated content is primarily, so for example, if you want to launch a website for your department, or you want to run your own website, you want to create a website of your subject expertise, how much content can you write on your own? There's only as much. How many articles will you be able to write in a month? Probably 4, 5, not more than that. So because these are going to be intense, dense articles. So a very good way to have more content on your website is user-generated content. So by user-generated content, what we mean is people who are coming to your website, or your users or your target audience base, is involved in the content process, and they try to create some content for you, or you try to feature some of their content. And a very interesting example of how this works is basically a lot of these plant or gardening related e-commerce websites. So for example, if you are into gardening and you love gardening and you want to run a blog or you want to run a website around it, of course, you would put out your prime content, what you want to say, or your articles and blogs and other things. But at the same time, a lot of people will get in touch with you. They will write their own experiences and stuff. And that content can also be used on your web page. So you can invite people to write, how they manage their succulents, or you can invite people to write about how they got introduced to gardening. So all these little stories will then become a part of your website that will make it more vibrant. Your website will be, full of content. There'll be interesting stuff. and yet it is all related to the same theme. If you are a botany expert and if you love to read a lot about that, you can literally have your own blog or little website with this user generated content. Of course, then the nature of content will change and the people who are writing to you will be probably people from the field. But when you invite readers to get involved with your content and write for you also, it gives you avenues to basically explore more content in less resources. So you don't need to write 10 articles per month, but a lot of people are writing for you, and all that content comes on your website, and it basically also creates better engagement, and it is more interesting for a lot of people. So always take user generated content very, very seriously when you plan to launch a blog, or if you are very keen to have your own website. Try to think of ways how you can use other people's content. Of course, you will have to give them due credits, but don't just simply share their content. Try to ask questions, try to get their opinions on certain things, and then that becomes a very, very interesting mode of engagement. At the same time, you get more traffic and you get more visibility to your own page or blog. So user generated content is a very interesting free of cost way to enhance your own content space. Now, the second thing which is very, very important in this whole web content ecosystem, and which is also sort of connected to the first question we had, where somebody was asking me, that we want to write a blog, but how do we make it more interesting, and what should we do so that it becomes more readable and it is more visible? Now, one of the key tricks of doing that is SEO, search engine optimization. Writing anything is one skill. How well you write it, or how good the English is, or how good your vocabulary is 50% or 70% of that job. But 20% of that job right now is, when we talk about digital content or web content, is primarily about how well you can distribute that on internet. Unfortunately, internet is also a medium where when you write something, it can get lost very easily. It's very easy to lose your content in this entire ocean of information and too much writing that you see all the time, because there are hundreds and thousands and lakhs and crores of people who are writing on Facebook all the time. There are people who are publishing LinkedIn posts. There are people who are doing all sorts of stuff on internet related to content. So how will your blog or your article or whatever you have written stand out? How do you do that? SEO is a very, very interesting way to do that. Now, SEO, if you break it down, is nothing but basically introducing the right keywords in your writing. So, for example, if you're writing about an environmental subject or topic, keyword is anything that defines what you are trying to say, that defines your subject and your topic. So if you're writing something on environmental impact of say plastic, or maybe environmental impact of coal burning or garbage burning, your keywords would be 1, environment, 2, coal, 3, coal mining, because it is also related and somehow it's a related topic. So anybody who searches about coal mining would then land on your blog. Or a very related keyword would be fossil fuels. So for example, so all these keywords have to be thought in very, very clever way. If you keep too many unrelated words in your keyword search, it is just going to defeat the purpose. It will not serve the purpose, because then the Google will get confused on what your subject is, what your article matter is, and what keywords you have put. If you put too less, then you're basically underutilizing the strength of keywords. So choosing the right keywords, the right related keywords, is really, really important to make your content visible. Now, the other aspect which is related to search engine optimization or SEO is also about how do you write these keyword intelligent keyword intelligent content. Now, always keep in mind whenever you are writing or you're trying to introduce more keywords in your writing. So there are two ways to basically introduce keywords. One is in the backend, basically in your, because I think in the last 2, 3, 4 days, you've learned about website development and how the backend of it works. So one is, of course, the metadata and how you introduce your keywords there. But the second aspect is how you embed your keywords in your content. Never do it very, very explicitly and upfrontly in the headline or in your article matter repeatedly, because if you're repeatedly using a few words again and again and again, that is basically also making your blog or your article very, very boring. So even the users are very intelligent these days, they know how things work. So the moment you have unnecessarily introduced a lot of keywords into your blog, it'll not work. So the better way to do it is, one, find the related words to it. Two, always realize that the keyword should be definitely in the headline, because all the crawlers and all your technical tools, they definitely pick up the headline. So even if you forget to mention it somewhere in the intro or later, definitely do mention it in your headline. A good headline will always be the one which includes keywords. So try to frame your headline in such a way that the word environment or coal burning or related, I mean, you will have to have some related words to it, but your keywords, your main 2 or 3 keywords which define your topic, should always be in the headline. So that's your first priority. The second intelligent way to embed SEOs without being too explicit about is breaking, when you write your articles, always as a practice use subheads. So you would have seen a lot of news media organizations these days have paragraphs. They have 5 paragraphs, and then till one point of your article where basically you're focusing on one argument, you write 2 to 3 paragraphs, and then you have a little subhead. So those subheads are the ones that are picked up by the crawlers. All this Google Google crawlers and the search engines that are basically working to highlight your content, and that are basically trying to understand what content has been written where and who can use what, they pick up these subheads. So make it a practice in whatever you write. You're writing a blog post, you're writing an article, you write a simple explainer. Sometimes you write an explainer for your students, and it has to be put online, and if you want more visibility for it, always break it into subheads. Even if you include 2 subheads to it, that will serve your purpose. And those subheads should basically be keyword intelligent. They should be written in such a way that they include the main keywords. So don't just try to make them catchy. Those subheads primarily are there so that all these search engines and crawlers can identify your content. So that's always a very, very interesting way to get SEOs right. The other thing that you should always do if you want your blogs to be very visible on internet is, whenever you're posting the pictures, please be very, very mindful of the file name that you give to that picture. So for example, if you're writing a blog on, say, COVID vaccine, if you're writing a blog on COVID vaccine, you happen to be, a microbiologist, or you happen to be a subject matter expert, and you have chosen a picture, or you've selected a picture from any of the free picture data banks, or one of probably your own data banks, your own university data bank or somewhere, the way you name the file and the keywords that you include in the file again will also be picked up by the crawler. So that picture and the file that the file name that you give to that picture has a role to play in how visible your blog will be. So a lot of people I've seen have this habit of, just giving the file name as XYZ and they go on. They just don't want to waste time in giving a proper file name to this. So don't do that. Those file names are really important, and they should always be something which makes sense. COVID virus, coronavirus, or COVID vaccine, or so these related basically terms are your file names. You cannot just say XYZ, or you cannot say only virus. So only virus is too generic. If your piece is about COVID vaccine or about research related to it, you can say virus research. That could be your file name. So be very mindful about this. So this is basically search engine optimization. Now, when we talk about search engine marketing, I'm not too sure how many of you will actually be looking for, making your websites more prominent and getting more visibility for the content that you write. But search engine marketing largely is targeted ads that you see on your website. And usually people hire outside help for it. But generally, for anybody who's interested into writing content and who believes in getting some visibility for their own content, should understand how these ads work. So the prime way these ads work is all these keywords that you've infused in your writing or in your ad are then detected by the crawler, and then they are placed on certain websites who you have paid. And the way you pay money, so for example, if I'm a manufacturer of water purifiers and I want my ads to be everywhere, I will place these ads, and then whatever clicks I get on that ad will be my return. And the payment that I have to make will primarily be about, or it will be decided from the fact that where this ad is being placed. So if my ad is being placed on the top side of the website, which is the first thing a user will see when they log in, the price will be higher. This is exactly like how the print ads work. If you are giving an ad on front page, it will be very expensive. If it is on fourth, fifth, sixth page, a very tiny column, it is going to be slightly cheap. So that is exactly how it works for the website. And the other thing which is interesting with digital and which does not happen with print or other ads is that these ads literally follow you where you go. So if I searched what shoes, or if I searched for table or chair somewhere, wherever I go, whichever website I log into, if I log into DSU, if I log into Oxford University, or I log into Indian Express, whatever my search is, these ads will keep following me. So they will basically, get hooked to my search history. They will get hooked to the IP address and everything, and then they will start following me wherever I go. So there are a lot of technical ways to do this. People who are genuinely behind these systems will know this better. But as content creators, what we need to know is that this is all again hooked to keywords, and how you try to understand what your user is looking for and you align your ads to it. So that's basically how it works. Now, social media marketing is something probably will be interesting for you, because I see that a lot of academicians and a lot of people who are into teaching professions have amazing content. They have a lot to tell to the world. The lectures that they give, the way they are interacting with their students, the kind of information they have. But I've never seen them creating their own websites or posting these things on social media. Now, one of the inhibitions always is that, this is something related to my profession, so why should I? It'll be seen as a show off, or it'll be seen as, who's interested in this content anyway? So this is a very wrong sort of notion that we have. There is somewhere somebody always looking for good content. The more you try to popularize your knowledge and your insights, the more it will help someone. So probably your ecosystem, your students do not need it because they already have access to your stuff. But always try to create a blog, or always try to create some online presence, so that more people beyond geographies can actually access what you want to do. And how do you do it is basically, remember those content pillars that we spoke about? That's primarily the way to get into this zone. So social media marketing is primarily about making your presence visible online. And social media platforms are Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn. Those are the social media tools that are always available to you. A lot of people, what they do these days is, so for example, if you are a subject matter expert of maths or physics or any other management, you tie up with a subject matter expert of your own domain, or maybe slightly different domain. So for example, if you are a management faculty, you tie up with someone who's from a content domain, or you tie up with someone who's probably from an expert of e-commerce or a very niche sort of upcoming domain, and then you try to do a joint content promotion, or you try to do a joint sort of webinar, or you try to write articles which are jointly written. Now this is a very interesting way of promoting one interesting content to content which is then visible to you and your network and the other person you have tied up with. So you basically get mileage of both these networks. And three, it becomes very interesting for certain domains because you get information which is very, very parallel to each other, and which you can have context. So for example, when the pandemic hit, I saw a lot of mental health experts tying up with people who are into yoga and alternative medicine. So it's like psychiatrists and psychotherapists tying up with yoga instructors to give a very joint sort of package to their audiences. And it's not necessary that all of this is paid all the time. A lot of times you just do it to promote yourself. You just do it because you want to showcase your knowledge to the world. You feel that this knowledge can be interesting and informative for someone somewhere. So always think of these things and never shy away from telling the world about you and what you have done, or things you probably can communicate to the world. So social media marketing is a very interesting way to do it. There are two ways to do it. The organic way, which is you don't pay for anything, you just write interesting post and you do it. The other is, of course, the paid way to do it. So I don't know if you all know that any social media platform that we have in existence today, be it LinkedIn, be it Twitter, be it Facebook, they allow paid promotions also. So when you write these Facebook posts, you can go and pay for it, and the Facebook will boost it for you. More number of audiences will be able to see it. You can even do targeted promotions. So for example, you can choose who will see your post. If you want people only from down south to see your post, and you feel that probably people from north will not be interested in what I'm writing, you can target your audience to all the southern states, and that's it. So only those people on Facebook or Twitter will get to see your content. Nobody else will see it. If you feel that I want more and more women readers to read it, I want more and more women to engage with my content or my innovation or what my teaching practices are, then you can do the targeting like that. There is age group targeting available. So you can literally target the age group that should come and read your post. So then your post would only be visible to people or students who are above 20, or probably postgraduates, or probably whatever educational. So there are advanced tagging techniques also available. So you can do that. So the more advanced you go in this, the more meticulously you do this, the better your social media marketing will be, the better your presence will be online. And the other one is, of course, email marketing, and we spoke about it slightly in detail some slides ago. So which is primarily, the around newsletters and how you use email to primarily say what you want to say. Now, one thing that you need to be very, very careful about email marketing is that email is a very personal thing. When you write an email to someone, or when you are doing email marketing, it is literally like you are invading into their house. It's literally like, you knock on someone's door and then you enter their house. It's not posting something on Facebook, which is a public domain. So this consciousness always has to be there. You cannot simply barge into someone's house. So the first step is taking a permission. So whenever you start email marketing, you have to have a very selected database of who you will send these emails to. These should be people somehow connected to your domain, or people who have agreed to be a part of that. So for example, we do this webinar and we have 40, 45, 30, 32, whatever number of participants. These are the people who agree to know about content. These are the people who have signed up for it. So this is the right data pool. This is the right set for any sort of email marketing related to content tools, content related courses, content writing courses. So tomorrow, if we were to run a business associating with any of these, this is the data set that we have, because these people have signed up to. But again, when you send these emails, these people probably signed up for this webinar. It does not mean that they signed up for any email from anywhere. So, that permission aspect is very, very important when you're doing email marketing. Random emails coming from all over, anywhere, are usually, you just block them and you forget them forever. So that's it literally backfires. So it's very important to keep in mind that email is a very personal way of reaching to someone. Unlike your Facebook post, if you're sending an email to someone, especially a marketing email or a promotional email, be very, very mindful of the fact that they should have signed up for it in some way or the possible, in some way or the other. Otherwise, it can backfire badly. So email marketing and newsletters is one. And the last is analytics. Now, I know that many of you must be thinking that, this is too much of promotion and too much of, we have largely spoken about how to be more visible and how to reach out to more people and all of that. But it is slightly sad, but the way digital functions is very different from these legacy platforms that we had, which is TV or radio. Digital is literally an ocean. And when you drop a pearl into it, which is your knowledge or your insight, it is very important that someone somewhere is able to find it. So if you genuinely want whatever you are trying to say to be read by people, all of this that we have spoken about till now, which is content marketing and email marketing and SEOs and keywords and how to write better headlines, all of these things are very, very important. And analytics is basically, again, another sort of tool which you can use. And my intention to introduce you to all of this right now is so that you are at least aware of what options do you have and how can you utilize these options better. So tomorrow, if you plan to launch something, you should know that, okay, these are the things available. This is something that I can do on myself. This is something for which I will need some outside help. And this is how we set out for it. So analytics is primarily the last sort of wheel which will carry your vehicle. What analytics primarily do is they tell you how many people have viewed this. So for example, when we post this webinar on YouTube, we probably look at a span of a month, we will get to know how many people actually viewed this video. If there are engagements, people who probably clicked on the description or who clicked on the link or who probably posted a comment, then it will give us an idea of how many people engaged with it. So that gives us an idea of how engaging your content was. Whatever you said, did it actually make sense to anybody? Was it actually useful for someone? Did people actually find it fruitful? So all that assessment is basically done through analytics. So if you don't go into analytics, if you don't understand this process too well, you will just blindly keep on writing and you will never get to know what is working and what is not working. So a basic understanding of analytics is really important. All the websites these days, they give analytics. Facebook can give you analytics of your posts. Every Facebook account has analytics, your or mine, or you don't need to be a business page for that. Every Facebook account has analytics enabled. So you can literally know, how many people have read your post, who are these people who are reading your post, and the views and clicks and everything. Conversion is basically when someone read. So for example, you have written a book and you shared a link and someone clicked that link, read the description, and also ended up buying it. So that's a proper conversion. You managed to write your teaser for the book in such a way that they actually ended up buying it. So that's conversion. So that is also something that you can get from analytics. What is working? If you have given 4 keywords in your blogs, you can actually, through websites, and there are tools available on internet where you can actually know which of these 4 keywords is working the best. So when people are looking for insurance, or when people are looking for something related to term insurance, life insurance, are they looking for renewal of insurance? Are they looking for security after death? Are they looking for financial stability? So what are the words that they are looking for when they go to Google? So you have analytics available for it. It could be any subject, but this can basically tell you what keyword is working for you and what keyword is not working. And then all of these trends basically help in optimizing your content. So if you feel that this is not working, then you again need to go back and tweak your content. Your headline, your keywords, whatever you have written has to be in such a way that it is aligned to the right keywords. You are using those right words. So keeping a track of analytics is really, really important in the web content ecosystem, so that you can understand your mistakes and you have a chance to correct those mistakes. Because unless you understand what you're doing wrong, you will never be able to correct it. So analytics basically help you in that. So yeah, so after all of this technical, I mean, because I am from content background and I'm a journalist, so a lot of this analytics and everything is too technical for me, and a lot of these things about backend development and stuff is beyond my expertise. So after all of this technical discussion, now we have finally arrived to a place where we are talking about what exactly is good content. So we've spoken so much about popularizing your content, visibility, and this and that. But how do you do that? And how do you create that content which can do that? Unless you have good content, none of what we have mentioned above is possible. So primarily everything that you want to achieve will lie on the content. So what is good content? The first thing that you need to keep in mind about content and good content is that the good content always is original. If you're trying to rehash an already published idea, or if you're trying to say something which has already been said, there's not much attention that you will get. Right from your own direct audiences. So for example, you write an article and you directly send it to your students who have no other choice than to read it because their faculty has shared it, but they can always read it and leave it halfway through, or they can sort of skip it altogether if they have that option. So unless you're saying something which is original in idea and nature, it will not work. Now, a lot of people say that how is it possible that you write something and you say something which has never been said before? And which is a very interesting point, because that's true. There is no story, there's nothing. There's rarely a very, very original idea. There's rarely something which has never been said before and which has, not been explored before at all. So what you should basically aim to do, or what we mean by saying that being original is the essence of writing good content, is even if you're trying to explore a said argument, or even if you're trying to explore something or write about something which has already been written about, ask yourself a question: what value addition am I doing to it? Unless you are value adding to it, unless you are adding something to it which probably has not been done before, there is no reason for you to write that content. If you ask yourself, what will my reader get when he or she reads it, and you don't get an answer, you should chuck that idea. That idea is not worth exploring. You don't need to write it because somebody has already written about it. So whenever you set out to write, just do a quick Google search, sit with yourself, try to explore, and ask this question to yourself, that because you would have read certain things about that too. So ask yourself, what is it that has not been written about before, and what is it that I am going to say new? And always emphasize on this value addition. Now, value addition is a very, very interesting and sort of misunderstood word. A lot of people feel that value addition primarily means adding some information or research, or some added new news bit to anything. Of course, that is definitely value addition. But one of the things that is largely overlooked is also the explanation part of already existing information. So, for example, if you are a management faculty, or you teach physics or chemistry to your students, and there's a very interesting concept, or a very intense and dense concept, which is already in the books and quite popular. One of the really interesting ways to write an engaging, interesting blog or an article around it is just demystify and deconstruct that knowledge for your students. So writing explainers, writing, answering a few very basic questions that your audience may have in their minds is also a very interesting and easy way of adding value. And we always underestimate this power of value addition. We feel that unless we have done more research on it, we have written something more to it, we've added something to it, there is no value addition. No, that is one form of value addition. The other very interesting form of value addition is demystifying something. So for example, I would love to read an article on basically collating information about COVID vaccines and why people are so uncertain about it, or basically, maybe the process of arriving to a vaccine. So a basic comprehensive article or a blog on how vaccines actually come in existence and the process in itself is an interesting read, and many people will read it because this is something that everybody wants to know. So, and this is something that is probably better written by an expert who's from microbiology, or a microbiologist, or a pharma expert, than a journalist like me, because I will probably not know the subject as an insider. I have not studied these domains. So I am going to do my research, and whatever understanding I have, I'm going to write it on the basis of that. But if you write it, you have a command on that subject. You know what to include and what not to include. So I've never seen academicians, and Noam Chomsky actually is a very good example of it, because he does a lot of these writings in newspapers and stuff, and he sometimes very complex ideas of democracy and public movements and stuff, and the way he beautifully demystifies them is amazing. And that is why people all across the world read him, because he has done it in such a fantastic way. So so that's a very good way of creating original content. Now this content has not been done before, because nobody has ever tried to simplify anything for someone. So when you simplify something, demystify something, deconstruct an idea, or any argument, that is also value addition, and that is also your original content. So be original. That's your basic fundamental for creating good content. Now, the second thing that we should always keep in mind, whether we are writing a blog or an article or anything, and this basically applies to each and every content pillar that we have seen before, the content has to be actionable. Now, what do we mean by actionable? Actionable, in very simple terms, means anything which can be acted upon. So if you are writing something which primarily is either trying to educate the audience, it is actionable, because people can learn from it. If you're writing something through which you are asking people to donate for something, it is again actionable content, because you are basically motivating them to do something in a particular domain. If you're asking a question to them and after reading an article they are able to answer it, that is actionable content. So writing any piece of information or anything without asking yourself what act can be done through it, or how can this basically serve a purpose for my audience, is futile. Don't ever write something which does not perform any action for anyone. The content has to be actionable. It should be either ask questions to your to reader and then try to answer them. So that brings some element of doing something and achieving something through that content. So that is what we mean by the content being actionable. And call to action is basically another very famous sort of phrase and nomenclature in the content industry. So you would hear a lot of people saying that, put a call to action. Let's do a call to action for it. Call to action is simply asking your reader to act upon something. You want your students to participate in a blood donation drive. You create a post or something, and then you ask people, how many of you want to play a positive role, or how many of you actually want to participate in helping people, helping people recover or get cured during these difficult times. And then you probably put out a link for registration for blood donation stuff. People click that link, they go and register. That's a call to action. So always try to have something or the other. You will have to ideate on this. You will have to think about this. This will differ from article to article, but always try to have something like this in your content. Now, the third point is basically provide answers. Now, I've spoken about this when I was talking about actionable, but providing answers is also a very, very interesting way of writing interesting content. Whenever you are sitting down to write something, try to also think from a reader's perspective. Try to think what your reader must be thinking. So for example, as a faculty member, can you actually step back and can you actually think like a student? Is it possible for you to think like like an ordinary person who probably does not know much about it? I know it is difficult, it's not very easy, but when I was preparing this presentation, I tried to step back. I did not know much about the background of the participants, and I did not know much about, what kind of people are there, because I think it's a very diverse group. But still, I tried to think, your own expertise, your own domains, and where you come from, and what you would expect from it. And then I clubbed that with what I thought you wanted to know or you should know. So one is what you wanted to know, the other is what you should know. And I clubbed these both to create this presentation. So providing answers should always be one of the primary goals of your writing. If your article, your blog, your post, your LinkedIn post is not providing clear answers to certain questions, it is futile. It cannot provide all the answers all the time, because otherwise it will become like a PhD thesis, or you cannot have answers to everything. But whatever your focus point is, be very, very clear in it and provide answers. Anything which is very vague and which basically tells but not tells anything is useless, so it will not work. So that's one of the other very crucial things to keep in mind. Now, the main element on which everything that you've written relies on is the tagline or the headline. So all of us know what is a headline. We like interesting headlines, and basically headline is the only thing which makes us click on the content, and through which we basically enter a content page. But how important it can be is something that you have to think about, and this is something that you really need to realize. So for example, when we had only newspapers and we were only in the books era, when there was only printed content, you look at a headline, and when you open a newspaper, you look at a headline, you have 3 paragraphs written next to each other, and you don't have a choice but to read it. There is no way you can avoid those paragraphs. So if you have read the headline, you have those 3 paragraphs open in front of you right there. There is no way you cannot listen to it. But the moment we've switched to digital, unfortunately, it has also given us an option of going away from these 3 paragraphs. So there are many, many times you land on a newspaper page or any website page, and you surf through it. Whatever interesting headline appeals you click on it, you try to read. If you feel that the headline is not interesting, or probably it will not be worth your time, just skip it. So when you're talking about web content, when we are talking about digital content, headline is basically the key to your first click. Now, there's a very interesting data set about headlines where people say that 80% people who come to your website will definitely read your headlines, but only 20% will percolate further. So if your headline is because they have to, like when you're looking at the page, they have to read your headlines here, there, on the bottom, on the top, side cursor, and everywhere. But they click on it or not, and they read further or not, is something that depends on your content. So writing interesting and strong headlines, intros, and taglines is very, very important when you're talking about creating good content. If you don't do this, you will not be able to do anything. The other thing that you need to keep in mind is being accurate. and especially I think people who are from academic domains, who are into teaching professions, they cannot go wrong. So you cannot go wrong. You have to be very, very accurate in what you say. Always link back to your sources. If you are doubtful about any data set, link back to the source and say that according to this and this. So that basically absolves you from all the responsibility, not all the responsibility, but at least some responsibility about the 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 data point that you've chosen. So if you don't do that, and if you mess up with facts, this is definitely going to reflect bad on you. So this is also a very fundamental point for creating good content. You have to be accurate and always credit your sources. Wherever you have taken your information from, go back and link to it. You always have this option of linking, so link back to it. Being error free is of course one part of it, but being error free also means that there should be no spelling mistakes and no grammatical mistakes. Run through your content through the tools available. I will share a few such tools with you at the end of the presentation, which can basically help you write error-free content. So always run through your blog, run through your article once before submitting it or before publishing it. If you don't do this, there are chances that there will be grammatical errors or there will be other errors and they will just slip off. So another good practice always is to ask someone who is probably related to your field, or maybe a co-faculty or somebody else, to run through your content. So because when we tend to read what we have written over a period of few days again and again and again, we just slip off. This is a blind eye we develop on a lot of mistakes. So to avoid that, try to run it through by other people, and then that will sort of help you to create error-free content. And the last of it is engaging. So if you have incorporated all of these above things, which is the content being original or being value added, actionable, providing answers, strong headlines, your content will be engaging. And engaging content primarily means when you are able to speak to your audiences through your content, you understand what they need. And once you have published the blog, and if people have commented on it, you also reply to those comments. So I've seen a lot of people who have their blogs on Medium and other such websites. They are very, very diligent and very, very particular about responding to people. There are people who just post something on LinkedIn and Facebook and then forget about the comments. They feel that this is too much of an engagement to go and reply everyone. Of course, you don't need to reply to everyone, but if anybody is asking a question, they are raising a point about your article, or if they're saying something, engaging with them is always a very good strategy to bring them back. So that also enhances the digital visibility of your content. How much do you engage with your reader? How much do you respond to them? If somebody has written to you on your blog, how much time did you take, or how well did you respond to them? All of this becomes part of the larger engagement ecosystem. So try to do that. Now, so that was primarily a generic idea of how do you create good content, and the very basic broad understanding. Now let's get to a very hands-on sort of particular assignment or something, which is where you can basically learn how to better tell a story. What could be some of the mistakes that you're committing when you're trying to write a story or trying to write an article or a blog or something, and how can you improve upon them? Now, one of the very basic mistake that many of us do, or the basic confusion many of us have is, and I have that confusion even today, despite the fact that I'm a journalist and I write for, a lot of digital organizations and news organizations and stuff. What should be the first paragraph of my story? How do I write it? What should be that first line that I say or write, which basically, brings out the message? Now, to arrive to that conclusion and to be able to answer that question, you need to know your product or your idea or your argument very, very thoroughly. So the list that we have right now in front of us is basically a little homework that we need to do before we set out to write. And many people, in this haste of, oh, we are the subject matter experts, we know how to write, you just sit down in writing and you don't do this checklist homework, or you don't sort of sit down and structure your article in your head or on paper. And that is why we end up committing a lot of mistakes that we do. So if you want to arrive at a very sort of crisp and readable and interesting blog post, article, or any content pillar, the first thing that you need to know is you need to know your product and you need to know your idea. Unless you know what you're trying to say, unless you've been able to frame it in the way of a intro or a headline, it will not work. So one of the ways that I always try to begin my articles is that I always write my headline. If I'm not able to focus on the headline, and if I'm not able to conceive a headline for my article, that means that my thought process still is too scattered. I'm thinking about too many things. There are too many things in my head, and I'm keen to write about this, I'm keen to write about that, because I'm not able to understand what is the focus of my piece and what is my headline. So unless I get this answer from within me, what is my headline, unless I'm able to frame a headline, I'm not able to proceed further. So a good way to write a very interesting, better readable article is to first write a headline. A lot of people do it other way around. They write a entire piece and then they try to devise a headline for it. There's nothing wrong in it, but writing an intro or a headline as the first thing sometimes sets the tone, to your piece. It tells you what you need to focus on and what should be your agenda, and how your piece should basically, what you should talk about as the central sort of argument. So that's very important, and to do that you definitely need to know your product or your idea very, very well. Now, the second important thing that you need to keep in mind when you are trying to create an interesting article or a piece is you have to know your audience. You should know who you're writing this for. You should know who are the people who are going to read it. If you're writing any article as a subject matter expert for parallel academicians or for people who are like you, your tone and your information will be different. If you're doing it for people who are your students or people who are, probably not very aware of that concept and domain, your information will be different. If it is people who know entirely nothing about your subject, then of course you'll have to demystify and simplify your article hugely for them. So deciding your audience is a very, very key point. A lot of articles sound very confusing and very mixed matched because we tend to start writing the article midway for people who are, probably other academicians and stuff. Then we worry in our head, so if some of the people who do not know about the subject read it, it'll be too complicated for them. So we then try to simplify it. Then you feel that no, this is probably too simplification. What would the academicians and the fellow faculty members think? So you then again try to make it a bit intense and with jargons and everything, and overall your article becomes like a khichdi of everything. So that's a very wrong strategy to follow. It is always good to write two separate set of articles for your different set of audiences, or you can always mention it in your article saying that many of the subject matter experts would agree or feel, and then you go on explaining the intense, dense information, and then you simplify it for the layman audience, or understanding it from a common perspective. Just mention this line and go on to explain it in the simple way possible. So the moment you do this in your article, you explicitly write it in your article, you have basically made your article available, reasonable, relevant for two different sets of audiences, which is very important. None of them will get confused, none of them will get offended, and both of them will be catered to. So that's a very good way of, one, you have to know your audiences, and two, you have to basically tweak whatever you're trying to say on the basis of your audiences. Now, the other relevant point that you need to keep in mind is connecting your subject matter knowledge or connecting your expertise to your audiences. What is it that is relevant for them? Why should they read about it? Why am I telling this story? This is the question that needs to be answered. So for example, if you're doing a story on, or you've written a paper on environmental impact of plastic and microplastic, this is probably one of the topics. You need to ask yourself a question: how will people connect to it? And if your target audience is the policymakers, try to talk about implementations and impact aspect of it, because that is what will hook the policymakers most. If you're trying to write this article for, say, common ordinary people, try to talk about the user perspective of it. Try to talk about numbers and scale. How this pans out on a world level. So that is how you basically make one piece of information relevant to different sets of audiences. So you have to connect your story to the audiences. If your story is not connecting to me, if it is not trying to make me understand how I fit into your picture, I will not be hooked to it, or I will not be able to read it. So that's something that needs to be done. Now, the other thing is incorporating social listening. Now, social listening is basically nothing, but it's primarily trying to understand what the world is talking about and then incorporating those things into your writing. So social listening, again, is a very interesting concept. There is a lot of technological platforms and tools available that that let you understand what is happening in the other ecosystem. But you, just one second. Yeah, so so social listening is a very important aspect of making your content good and original, because unless you understand what the others are saying and what they want, you will not be incorporate all of that into your own content. And adding visual and audio appeal wherever possible is again something that you should look for. So a lot of people, and especially people who are from academic circles and people who are subject matter experts and who are into intense and dense content, do not pay attention to these little new formats that are coming up. They feel that this is sort of it's fine if you're just writing a text piece and we are not adding any visual appeal to it. Try to use good pictures. Try to use interesting video tools that are available. If there is a short video that you can attach to your article which explains your subject interestingly, please do that. There's no harm in doing that. So you should always try to follow this. Now I have basically tried to incorporate, we are running out of time, so I'll be a bit quick now. We have, I think, a few more slides left. So there's a very popular acronym that we use in the content industry, which is KISS, KISS. The good writing is KISS. So KISS is basically nothing but keep it interesting, simple, and short. So if you can see, like here, I have basically, I collated a few interesting headlines and write headlines that communicated the whole thing that we were speaking about earlier of being crisp and short and keyword oriented. And if you read through these headlines, you will realize that most of them, and rather all of them, serve that purpose. So, this first headline, I think, is really interesting enough to let anybody click on the article and read what it is. And look at the way they have written this intro. It intrigues you. It does not reveal the entire information. You will definitely read the rest of the article to know what it means. So it's not that shut the case in the intro and everything from the intro, so that you don't need to read further. So it teases you, it intrigues you, it takes you further, and then you are hooked to read further. Now, so if these were the good examples of how you should do things, some of the bad examples or some of the common mistakes that we do is making our content or headlines too verbose. So verbose is basically using too many words into it. The other is what I mentioned just now, which is revealing too much information. So don't try to say everything in the intro. If you've said everything in the intro or the first paragraph, what are you going to say further? Why should somebody read your third or the fourth or the fifth paragraph if you've said everything in the first paragraph? So keep it interesting, keep it simple, keep it tease what you want to say, but at the same time, keep something for the later parts also. Don't overpromise in your headlines and underdeliver. Overpromising basically is, you write so 10 ways you should know to get maximum benefit out of your mutual funds. So you write something like this, and your entire article does not reveal any information about it. So that's a very bad practice. We want we want readers to click on our articles and headlines, but we don't want them to be dissatisfied. So don't overpromise and underdeliver. And the headlines and the intros, and I mean, this actually applies to the entire piece, but sometimes you have to use jargons and technical terms, but don't use them or don't fill your headlines and intros with the jargons. If there are too many jargons, that it annoys and it clutters the mind and it does not help anyone. So that's one thing that is to be avoided all the time. Missing keywords. You cannot write an article for a digital platform for web and then miss important, interesting keywords. So how do you basically, incorporate that is something that we've spoken about. Know your keywords, write them separately when you're doing this article or when you're writing something, incorporate them whenever possible. And common mistake that we always do is no call to action. When we don't include those actionable points that we spoke about in our articles, that is also something that we should do. So there is a final checklist now, just basically a quick sort of interesting way to keep your stories relevant. And the basic fundamental thing that you always need to realize and understand is that there is no one way to tell a story. There is no expert, no course, no module, no training that can tell you the best way of writing a story and you just follow it and do. Even if you follow the best way possible, the problem is 100 other people will be following that best way, and then you will have 100 same stories. So the only reason we say that there is no one way to tell a story is because this whole practice has to be very diverse. Everybody has to write in their own style, in their own way, so that this content is different from each other. Now, always try to begin with the highlights, catch the attention of the people, propose your idea to the people, and tease the reader. A lot of people have this habit of writing the most illustrated and beautiful English, and being too vague and philosophical in their first paragraph. I personally feel that for most subjects this is not required. Unless you've been actually able to weave your idea into that philosophy and into those words, going too much into the background and going too much into the vague context setting does not work. There is the idea of writing coming straight to the point is always better and sure shot, and it has chances of being wrong. The chances of it being wrong is very less if you have come to the point, if you have written what you want to write your article about in your intro, and if you've been able to hook the reader there and then. So a very vague intro will not work. That does not work. So just even if you love to write and you would want to elaborate a lot on a few things, keep that for a third or a fourth paragraph. Your first paragraph is not the right place or approach for too much of vague context setting, because you lose your audiences there, you lose your readers there. Now, and a very related point to this is telling your journey. So I don't know how many of you know about Arunachalam Murugam, but he's basically known as the Padman of India. This whole famous Bollywood film is based on him. So now Arunachalam, there are two aspects to his story. One, that he has made low cost cotton pads for women. The other is his journey and how he arrived to this product idea. And how he arrived to this product idea was that basically, his wife was always too ashamed to share with him, when she was menstruating, and she was always struggling to find the right cloth and all of that hassle. So he saw his wife, he got really annoyed and very, very sort of affected with that. And then he decided to make a machine which could make these low cost pads. And that is how the whole story came into picture and whole movement started. So he's a very famous person now, known globally. But there are two aspects to his story. So how do you begin your story now when you say this? I personally feel that, you can begin it either ways. You can start with Arunachalam's story and then come to the point that he has innovated this new sort of pad. And you can always, come to the pad and probably talk about general women and how they suffer during menstruation in most parts of our country, and then come to Arunachalam's story. But either way you do it, you need to keep in mind that this journey cannot be elaborated on too much. So if you try to elaborate too much on the journey and too much on how you arrived at this point, you are again losing the track somewhere. So keep it short, keep it simple, include that part because it is interesting, but don't make it the focus of half of your article, because your larger point is something else. Now, the other thing that you need to keep in mind is the chronology of how you add these things to your story. So your idea basically takes the top place. Nothing can replace your idea. Unless you have introduced your audiences or your readers to the idea, your content will not work. So idea takes the first place. The second is numbers around your idea. How many people are doing it? What is the impact of it? How many people are affected with it? Those are the kind of numbers that you have to. Any story, any article, any blog which has interesting data, it always stands out. So even if you're writing a very theoretical piece of content, always try to have latest data or related data available to it. And then also try to include a few mentions of other people from that domain. So if you happen to be the best nuclear scientist in the world and you want to write on that, there is no harm in including other people and what they have done in that domain, at least in some bits. So that adds a different sort of credibility to your piece, and it also makes it a bit diverse. So always try to do that. Your competitors, other companies who are doing it, other subject matter experts who have written about it, throw in a line or two about them, and that will make your article more robust and more credible. Plus, in your content research and in your content, basically the digital marketing aspect of your content, you get a mileage of that person also. So, whenever people are searching about him, your article is also cropping up. So that's a way to take a mileage from other people's online visibility. And industry data, of course, is included in the numbers. And the most important and one of the most interesting things is impact. So everybody is interested to know what impact you have created. If you've done something which has basically changed someone's life, definitely mention it. And these are the kind of stories people always want to read. They want to know about what impact you have created. So if you have created some impact, if you have created some change, if you have led to something, always do mention that. And that should be a prominent part of your ending of the story, or in the middle of the story, where you can actually maybe sometimes start from that impact and tell the larger story of how you arrived at it. So impact always incites people, and it always sort of helps them get hooked to it. Now, once you know that what is good content and how you create it, the other aspect of this whole thing is, what medium do you choose? And do you remember we started this presentation with the same thing, where we saw Subramanian Swamy, Renuka Shane, and Rahul Gandhi choosing their own mediums for it. So choosing the right medium is very important. We have spoken about it repeatedly, but let's try to sort of recap it once more. How do you choose the right medium for what you want to say? You choose the right medium by, one, identifying the purpose of your content. What are you trying to achieve by your content? What is your purpose? Do you want people to buy your book? Do you want your personal brand building? Do you want people to know that you exist in this field and you write about this? Do you want to generally make people aware about your subject? Probably you are in a very niche area. Your research is a very niche research area. Not many people know about it. You should probably start writing about it so that more people know. So, what you're trying to do, and that will decide the medium. If you want to reach out to your fellow academicians and people who are in your industry, and your probably academic journals and these intense long form article websites is your go-to. Writing on Facebook will not help. If you're trying to reach out to common people, you have to reach out to Facebook, because that's where generally the content is. If you feel that I just want to simply create awareness and be on internet, so that if people type about nuclear science, they should know about me, start a blog on Medium, start writing, and then people will figure out and this thing. So try to figure out what is your content's purpose and what do you want to do with your audience. What do you want them to do? Now, the second is related to this, identifying where your audience is. So you try to find out where your audience is, Facebook or somewhere else, or LinkedIn. So a lot of people misuse LinkedIn with Facebook. They just keep posting a lot of just generic content on LinkedIn. It is not meant for that. LinkedIn is very, very niche for business purposes, tie-ups, networking with people who are from your own industry. So don't waste your generic content there. And assess your resources. You could be planning to do a lot. You are a full-time faculty. You teach students, and you are already engaged in something which consumes 8 hours, 9 hours of your day. So assessing your resources is very important. Don't start your presence on 5 platforms at the go, because you will not be able to do justice to any of them. So you have to genuinely assess what are the kind of things that can be done practically, which is what is possible, and only get into that. How much money can you devote? Can you actually hire someone to do it for you? If that, then go for it. If not, you're doing it to yourself. Try to assess how much time you have, how much bandwidth you have to do this, and then go for it. Now, this is something that I will basically share with you at the end of the presentation, because for people who want to do further reading and who want to who want to read about whatever we have spoken in detail later, I'll share this graphic with you separately, because I found this very, very interesting. And in a nutshell, it basically sums up everything that we have spoken about. So it talks about starting with research, how you need to know your subject, and setting out everything with basic research. Know your subject, know about what you want to say, how many people have said this before, what new are you going to say. That is all part of research. Then your goal setting. What do you want to achieve with that content? What do you want to do ultimately with that content? Do you want more business? Do you want brand building? And that will basically design what you want to do and what you want to write. The third is content strategy. Content strategy is primarily trying to understand, do you want to write articles? Do you want to be active on Facebook? Do you want to write an academic paper, a white paper? What do you want to do? So that is basically content strategy. How frequently do you want to do this? Me as a journalist, I can write 2 articles per day, because I write about news, I write about current affairs. But you cannot write 2 articles per day on nuclear science, or you cannot write 2 articles per day on things like climate change or environment. It will be very difficult. Probably environment we can, but then we need to decide how we want to go ahead with it. So that is part of your content strategy, how frequent you need to be. So unless you structure this, you will not be able to percolate further. Content creation is the hands-on job of actually genuinely creating content. How you do that? Is someone else going to do it for you? Are you going to do it for yourself? So that is basically content creation. Now, content curation is, do you remember we spoke about user-generated content and other people writing for you? Content curation, as the word explains, is nothing but curating other people's content. What other people have written related to your content, you curate that, you compile all of that, and you push that in your blog and your website with due credit, so that your website is more populated and there is more buzz about it. Distribution is choosing the right method for distributing your content. Do you actually want to write a piece for Deccan Herald as a faculty member or subject matter expert? Do you want to just keep writing on Facebook like a post and let people know that, I write generally? A lot of people do that. You would have seen Facebook influencers and stuff. So distribution is basically deciding your channel. If you're launching a book, how many people will that reach? How many copies you want to publish? So all of that is distribution. Engagement is, again, basically engaging your audiences, answering their questions, speaking to them, maybe doing a webinar once in a while rather than in addition to the articles that you write. So engagement is basically all of that. This thing. So that is the content cycle. This has interesting little anecdotes attached to this. So I'll share this graph with you. Please go through it and keep this handy for whatever, wherever, whenever you have to take decisions. You can do that. And the last slide, basically the closing of the presentation, is a few handy tools that you have available for you to write good content. So I'll very quickly tell you about these, but I cannot explain all of them here because it is not possible. You will have to go to these websites and they are self-explanatory. Content, BuzzSumo is basically an amazing content tracking website. If you want to know what content is being read, who's writing what, and what is basically the most trending content, analytics, what is your competitor writing, all of that you can do on BuzzSumo. So, and Social Flow is basically a posting sort of software. It allows you, so if you really want to go heavy on a content side, if you have your own website and you want to channelize, you use social media to schedule posts. So it automatically goes, one person one day sits and just fills it up. It goes automatically. It will just basically, whenever the software feels that the right type of audiences are online, they will push the content out. Canva, I think a lot of you would know Canva is like, it's basically an illustration or designing tool. Very, very handy. A lot of people use these days Canva even to design birthday invites and stuff, but it has very interesting, a lot of media organizations actually use Canva. So designing creatives and stuff you can do. There are templates, you can use Canva. Draw.io is, I think, a very interesting platform for particularly your kind of audience. So it has a lot of diagrams and infographics and templates available. Very simple to use, and you can use it for your presentations, for your articles. Always write something, include a diagram or a graphic that will make it visually appealing. Grammarly is again a very popularly tool, but again, very, very reliable. There are many others, but I would still say go with Grammarly. They are sharp, they are apt, they are correct. So there is a free version, there's a paid version, and Grammarly basically corrects all your grammatical mistakes. So you never send any piece of content out in the market or to anybody without sharing it, without basically cleaning it with Grammarly. And the last is InShot for mobile videos. So in case you want to venture into mobile videos, you want to create interesting videos, and you want to just experiment with visual storytelling, do create some interesting, do try your hands on InShot. You can create little animated videos, text-based videos, and these little things. And InShot is very, very useful, very simple. So yeah, so I think we will now take, how many minutes do we have? Yeah, we have around 15 to 20 minutes, I think, 20 minutes for questions. So if there are any questions, you can let me know, or anything that you would like me to elaborate on maybe.
Yeah, participants, if you have any questions, you can type it in chat box. Thank you.
Parul, I would say that it is very nicely and well covered. Very interesting talk.
Thanks.
Thank you. And all the points or queries, and you have covered everything in a lot of detail. Thank you very much.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I mean, yeah, the whole intention was to make it, as relevant as possible, and at the same time, not very boring and dragging and technical. So,
only thing I would like to say that KISS is keep it short, stupid.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I know. So I basically changed it a bit because that is also one of the popular usages, and I thought that it fits really well into my structure.
Because we use it very frequently in management.
Oh, okay.
Right.
No, you've got it extremely.
Because people have the habit of, talking all around. Like I said, beating around the bush and not coming to the point. So we have to keep telling them.
Right.
Keep it short.
No, you have been bang on.
Thank you very much.
Thank you,
any
sir.
questions?
Parul, good evening.
Sorry, just 1 second. I think I'm not able to see the chat box.
Parul, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Tell me.
Yeah. First of all, let me congratulate you for giving a very elaborate content on how to manage content on website. It was an extremely insightful session, I would say. Though you had a lot of content to discuss with us, I think the shortage of time made it, I think you were hard pressed for the time.
Yes.
I understand that. I understand that. Maybe later on we can have more sessions with maybe topic by topic we can take it
by
on,
topic. Yeah, so basically what I've tried to do today through this workshop is introduce all the important aspects to everyone. Now, whatever appeals you more or is your area of concern, pick it up and then move forward is what I wanted to basically communicate.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I have a, I don't know whether I should call it as a query, but however, I'll call it as a question. You have covered a lot of aspects which can be kept in mind both for a professional, or an individual website creation or an institutional website creation, right? I think we can keep these points in mind in either requirement, either types of requirements. Right. Now, since here we have participants both from the institution, within our institution, and other institution faculty members are also participating. What are the maybe 2 or 3 key takeaways that you would like to share when they go back to their campus and try to incorporate that in the institution website. What are the 1 or 2 key things that they need to keep in mind?
Okay. Sure. So I think that's a very, very interesting. I'm so thankful that you asked this because, and I really don't mean to offend anyone here, but I am, as a journalist and as someone who's been in the industry for so long, I am yet to come across a very, very interesting, functional, and appealing institution-based website or an academic institution website yet. So there are some who try to solve and who try to get it right on most parameters, but completely, I think none of them is able to do it. And I think the reason primarily is because there is always so much content to share that the website primarily becomes like a showcase or a museum of everything, and is not very, very visually appealing, or is not very clean in its aptitude. So I think one thing that you should or try to achieve every time is that a very important aspect of the website is that it has to be visually appealing, and it has to resonate with that eye movement theory of communication. So how your eye moves on the website, what are the areas where you need to really focus on, and what are the areas you can probably devote to the content which is not very important. So when you look at your institution's website, it's a really intense and heavy job because, so for example, DSU's website will have information about all the courses and then faculty members and then what they are doing. So it's too much content actually. But when you put out this too much content, and this is possible, believe me, this is possible. When you put out too much content on your website, try to present it in a way, or try to, with the help of a web designer, try to design it in such a way that it looks clean in the first appeal. We always need to keep in mind that a lot of people who come to these websites are also parents of the students. So even if the students are very tech savvy and they can handle too much information, a lot of parents and guardians are also coming to these websites. So we need to keep a very different age group in mind when we are designing these. So don't keep it very content heavy. The more heavier the website is, the more cluttered it will look, and it will be too much happening everywhere. Now, one of the other things that I've seen, I don't know if I've not checked DSU's website per se, but some professional institutes primarily try to have lots and lots of notifications. See this, catch this, do this. So if there is too much happening on the screen everywhere and there is a pop-up here, I mean, we understand that they want to sell their courses. We also understand that they want users' attention everywhere and everything. But try to do it through content, try to do it through catchy words rather than using these pop-up windows coming out from everywhere. So that's, I think, the second thing to keep in mind. And navigation, I think, again, is very, very important for these websites. So it should be very, very functional. I should be able to get all my answers in minimum clicks possible. So if I want to know about a course on management, and if I have to, enter 5 pages to do it, that is bad navigation. So I should be able to reach to the course contents and the faculty, and because these are the primary 2 things that would want to know, and maybe the placement information as quickly as possible. So, this is primarily like that I can say broadly that needs to be kept in mind. Keep it content, design the content in such a way that it conveys information, but it is not too cluttered. Yeah.
Yeah, I think spot on, Parul. And when you were explaining a second point, I was reminded of the news channels that we are getting to see today on the television. I think there'll be 3 or 4 scrollers running, 2 or 3 advertisements on the screen, and then one person debating with maybe 10 pictures on the screen. Yeah. I seriously do not know where to watch and what to read.
What to read, exactly. So that you are just dividing your attention. See, that's the difference, because news channels essentially do not have anything new to tell you. They are just trying to divert your attention in a lot of this zigzag. But we as institutions, or as experts, or as subject matter experts, we have genuinely good content to say. So if we try to clutter the audience, or if we try to distract them too much, it is going to defeat our purpose. So we need to be very mindful and careful of this, is what I would like to say. We have a question from Dr. Pooja Shashi, and she's saying that sometimes while making website, can I take this question?
Yeah, please.
Okay. So she's saying that sometimes while making website, we may not be fully aware regarding level of audience. Can you give some idea if I want to be a bit subject specific? So I think, so I don't know what exactly, so when you say level of audience, are you talking about the age group, or are you talking about their expertise and their knowledge base? I'll try to answer both. See, when you make a website, it is not possible that you would not know your target audience. You will always know your target audience, and you will have to fix this. So even if you say that, no, I want to cater to everyone, a good strategy will be to at least define 2 or 3 first priorities, 2 or 3, 2 or 3 tasks that you want to achieve, on the basis of which you can decide your audience pool. So making a very generic sort of thing for everyone actually works for no one. So that's a bad strategy. So force yourself to think, what your audience base is. And then, because unless you know that you're doing it for students, you will not be able to design your terminology, your language, your appeal, your look and feel of the website, everything. Now, hypothetically, let's say that, we want to design a website which basically caters to both students and their parents. So these are 2 different age groups, right? So then you will have to have a few components on your website which probably are interesting, which are completely up to date and according to the latest thing, which talk about future, because students would want to know 5 years down the lane, 10 years down the lane, once they have done this course, where do they see themselves? What is going to happen? So talk about placements. The layout and designing of the website should be such that it appeals to a young audience. Very boring and text heavy sort of layout will not appeal them. So try to include new things. Maybe have an explainer video or an animated video somewhere on your website. That's a very classy way of communicating your message of how your subjects can differ, or how your way of teaching differs from other universities. But at the same time, when you're keeping these parents in mind, they may not be very well aware of a lot of technical terminology about these courses. When they studied and when they were in universities was some 30, 40 years ago. So things have changed quite a bit. So you also have to keep in mind that you have to sort of educate them so that they can take a decision for their children. So somewhere, because I've seen a lot of universities, and I think Ashoka and all, they do this, they try to explain these courses a bit, and they try to use the old names, giving the new names. So basically a context setting between what it was called before and what it is now. So it's a very intelligent way of moving forward. But at the same time, anybody who's slightly not aware of that ecosystem can also know that, oh, okay, this is the course that probably used to be in our days, and now this is how it is moved. So yeah, I think if that is what you mean by level of audiences, maybe this is how you can target this.
Any more questions from the participants? Okay, so we are come end of the session. I may like to express my thanks, our sincere thanks to Parul Agarwal for giving an excellent coverage on web content. It gave deep insights into the topic and also revealed some interesting facts. Once again, thank you, ma'am.
Thanks. Yeah. It was my pleasure. And I'll share a note with Dr. Solomon, basically about the reading material and where you can access more information about a few things I've mentioned. So anybody who's keen can, you can circulate it maybe with the participants later.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, sure.
Thank you so much. Thanks a lot.
Okay, now I request our respected principal to give keynote address on the FDP.
It is not keynote. Okay, keynote is over. It is when you start. Okay, when you finish, it is concluding remarks. Please get this clear, right? Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. We have come to the end of the 5-day FDP on branding and web development to higher education institutions. We started with the branding, then onto creating your web page, and finally saw how to add the content by way of photographs and the content, written content. I'm sure the FDP has kindled the inquisitiveness in all of us to learn more and more. I saw some of your landing pages or the front page, as you all call it, and I am happy to see that most of you have got the grasp of things. I must tell you that if you don't work on it, you will forget what you have learned. So keep at it. I'm sure you have enjoyed the FDP as much as we enjoyed in putting it across to you all. I would like to take this opportunity to compliment and thank each of our partners and the personalities that is the resource persons who have made this event a very successful event. I would also take this opportunity to compliment each one of you for your participation. And as I said, please continue to work on what you have learned, otherwise you will forget it. Right? Thank you very much. All the best.
Thank you, sir. Now I request Dr. Solomon to give a brief report on the FDP proceedings.
Greetings to one and all present here. I am Professor Solomon Jabraj, faculty at D. It's my and honor to submit the report on 5 days FTP on branding and web development for higher education institutions. Our FTP is organized and conducted for the participant from higher education to gain insight and information that would remain effective in their life, exercise, and work. We started the day one with our resource person, Mr. Ganesh, and consultant and senior corporate what is branding and how well you can project yourself outside and listen closely to consumer. Have a clear impressions on what the institution provides. Tell who is your target audience and who am I, what I can do for you, why choose me, what is my personality. And the day one end with activity of branding. The day two session on web design, our resource person, Mr. Dinesh, and he talk about introduction of full stack, how the full stack development it is used in web-based website development. Apart from the full stack developer, and what is the difference between the developer and the designer? It is explained in detail in an effective manner. Apart from that explanations, the evening session we studied the basic structure of HTML and the different types of tag, and then what are the basic structure of the tables and other programming code. In the day three, we are continuing with the same resource person, and we are learned CSS and then query how to use the CSS with a different template, and how the template it is used in the media query, and what are the important hit up accounts, how to create and how to implement that all we are learned. And the third day end with Mr. Navaneet Krishnan, software architect, Siemens Solutions. He had a good session on what is UI, what is UX, and how AI it is used in the technology. And the day four, we are beginning with the same resource person, Mr. Dinesh, and how to make a web page active, creating an account, creating land home page in the website, and the different template how can be used in the website development. Most of the students also experienced how to create the website with the help of our resource person, Mr. Dinesh. And the day 4, we end up with session on digital marketing. And here we have Mr. Suprit Garla, CEO of Director NICT. He talking about SEO and certification of digital marketing and the social media and how the social media it is used in media. And today, the last day of this FDP, the morning session, our resource person, Mr. Gopinathan, he's talking about what are the directives of the light play a very big role in a photography. Apart from the EV and EC explore, the hard light and the soft light. The technical term, how it is used to make a good photograph so that that photography technique can be implemented in the website. And today's the last session, we had our resource person, Paul Agarwal, working with the organization TPC, and she's talking about web content and web content pillars and web content ecosystem. Before we end up this episode, I would like to express my heartfelt gratitude to all the organizing delivery channel partners and participants who sincerely committed to this event to make it fruitful. I thank you all for the wonderful learning experience with our delivery channel partners. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All good things come to an end. We accumulate our FDP with a vote of thanks by Professor Vasudev Rao.
On behalf of DSBA, first I sincerely thank management of DSI for permitting and supporting us to conduct a 5-day FDP. I thank NICT Computer Education Private Limited, Crampet PTE Limited Singapore, and Humanities Council DSI for associating with us to conduct this 5-day FDP. I thank our principal, Dr. Brigadier Sandesh, for supporting us in smooth conducting of FDP. I thank Dean Academics, Dr. Veena, for guiding us all the time. I thank respected and most distinguished speakers of the 5-day FDP. Starts with Mr. Kiran Kumar, the CEO and founder director of NICT Computer Education Private Limited, Mr. Ganesh Vanjeshwaran, Mr. Madhusudan Mukherjee, a business head, Crampet PTE Limited, Singapore, Dinesh Pradeep, who is an excellent trainer on web technologies, Mr. Navneet Krishnan, and Mr. Suprit Garla, a director of NICT Computer Education Private Limited. And I thank today's speaker, K. Gopinath, and Parul Agarwal working with me. Once again, I thank all the above resource persons for transmitting the knowledge. I thank all participants who has attended this 5-day FDP. I thank all technical experts for providing a technical support. I thank all the people who were directly, indirectly helped us to make this FDP a successful. Thank you, one and all. Thank you. Namaste.
Request all participants to give feedback. Link will be shared in WhatsApp group. Certificate will be sent shortly those who have attended all 5 days FDP. Meet you all soon on the next FDP. Thank you.